There are so many TEDx talks out there. So many things have been done. There's really no brilliant new ideas out there. There's nothing new under the sun is the quote.
Yeah.
What you should do is find a topic that only you can talk about. That makes it not necessarily generally unique, but unique to you.
Welcome to the Data Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment wherever you listen. And for all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, head over to the datanerdpodcast.com.
Just a few months after we had our first podcast, that's when I got the invitation to give my first TEDx talk, and my life changed completely after that. It was May 2024 that I got that invite. So I love the fact that you've invited me back on so I can now share that whole experience becoming a TEDx speaker and since then. I'd say that since I was a kid, I had this dream to give a TEDx talk one day because as a kid, my biggest challenge and weakness was speaking, like in any setting, not
Yeah.
just professionally public speaking, but personally in any social setting. I cannot imagine, I could not imagine at that time becoming someone who could now go on stages and travel around the world to give keynotes and talks. The biggest thing that helped me in my journey, and this is what I'll say to
Mhm.
anyone in the audience listening, is the biggest thing to work on is your own confidence. Once you develop confidence in yourself, everything sort of just falls into place after that. And by confidence, I mean not just confidence in what you know. I think the common misconception around confidence is we have to know everything possible to feel confident about ourselves. But I believe that confidence is actually quite the opposite. I think confidence is when we get the unexpected, we know how to handle it. So here's an analogy to
Okay.
think about it. If you imagine a painting,
Mm-hmm.
the painting has both the subject matter of the painting, it has the person who's being drawn or the landscape or whatever it is, but it also has the negative space that doesn't have stuff. As another analogy, there's dashboards, which we all use in
Mm-hmm.
data. They have tiles devoted to stuff, which is the graphs or charts or data visualizations. And there's also negative space, the white space, the
Yeah.
emptiness.
Yeah.
Commonly with confidence, we think we need as much stuff as possible on the page to feel good about our own expertise. But I believe what confidence really is being okay with that negative space existing, being okay with the fact that we're imperfect, we don't know everything, and we can be confident about that. We can be confident about what we know and also what we don't know.
Well, when you talk about that negative space, and I'm gonna relate this back to dashboards, okay?
Yeah.
Um, Negative space is a good thing.
Hmm.
You need that negative space because it allows you to focus on what's important. If you have too much content, then just becomes noise, right?
Exactly. And something that informed the perspective that I'm taking is I was talking to a lot of clients who I work with when it comes to public speaking, and I was trying to
Yeah.
really isolate what is it that makes us feel unconfident when it comes to communication, whether you're shy or introverted, or maybe you're extroverted,
Yeah.
but you're not comfortable on camera, whatever it is. And the biggest thing that I found was people were not confident because they felt they were being judged or they were being criticized. They wanted to be good enough for other people.
Yes. I feel that a lot of that pressure it comes from within yourself. We put it
Mhm.
on ourselves.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't feel that. Well, I felt the same way actually. I was very much like you. I was a very shy person growing up. And I didn't like public speaking. Even to this day, I'm not, I haven't changed my personality. I'm still a shy person when I go out, but I'm not opposed to speaking up now.
Mhm.
Um, but the reason why I didn't before is because I would worry too much about what other people
Right.
thought about me. I think what changed and what made me more comfortable to speak when I need to is the idea that people actually are not as critical as you think they are.
Mhm.
Do you agree with that? Is that your sentiment as well?
Absolutely. I like to break this down from a scientific lens as well. We have so many cognitive biases that dictate our perception of other people and everything that happens around us. One of them is known as the spotlight effect, which is when we are speaking or just going about it every day, we think that everybody's putting a spotlight on us, that they're all thinking about us and what we're doing. But really, everybody is just thinking about themselves.
Yes, that's
So
true.
it's it's a cognitive bias that is so common, especially when I work with speakers. But the truth is, nobody's going to notice that little mistake that you made. If you
Yeah.
don't make a big deal out of it, you just keep going and move on, nobody's going to notice.
So I'll tell you a story. So my daughter, she's 13 and she takes figure skating lessons. And she has a show at the end of the year. Actually, tomorrow is her end of year show. And she's been practicing for this all year, right? Every week she goes and she has a coach who teaches her, you know, figure skating, and they practice this routine. And this last week was her last practice. And then after practice, she was like, or the rehearsal, she was like, it wasn't good. I'm not happy with it. I'm like, why? You did amazing. I've seen you skate and I've seen your progress. You're great. She goes, no, but I just felt that it didn't feel as good, or I didn't feel as confident. My I don't know, some of her jumps or whatnot didn't hit as well as it did before. I'm like, but listen, I didn't notice that.
Mhm.
And most people will not notice that. You're just being too hard on yourself. She goes, no, 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 it's not as good as I think it is. I don't think I'm going to do well. I'm nervous. I think that is a similar sentiment to that people feel when they're public speaking. They
Yeah.
worry about the small little mistakes, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, look at the entire lecture or speech, or in my daughter's case, her routine, it's still going to be great, and people will not go down to those minute details.
hmm I think your daughter's example is a perfect example of another cognitive bias, which is negativity bias. So when we are analyzing a particular event, we tend to focus on just the negative stuff, not the positive stuff, even if it exists. So as an example, I was working with a client and I asked her, hey, tell me about all the things you really like about your public speaking right now. She wasn't able to list anything because all she could focus on are all the things that are wrong. And then we went into it and I said, hey, let me point out things that you are actually doing well right now. The things are, you know, your subject matter better than anyone else than I know, at least. And in your team, you acknowledged yourself to me early on in the call that you knew this particular aspect of your domain very well. That's checked off. You also are very good with your attention to detail. So you told me before in a story that you were on your team and you noticed particular bugs in the code that were going on. You were able to notice that no one else was able to notice that. There are so many things that you are really good at, but you're not paying attention to them because your mind is telling you this story that you're not good enough. So the key thing to do when it comes to developing confidence is developing that self-awareness about your negativity bias, taking a step back and realizing that voice in your head that's telling you you're not good enough, that you made a mistake, that all these things are wrong. That's just one opinion. I like to think of that voice in our head kind of like a friend that has good intentions, but is just very loud and perhaps doesn't deliver the feedback as well as they could. So this friend in our head is telling us all these things. And we have to say, okay, wait a minute, that friend is just one piece of feedback. What are the other things that are going on that perhaps I'm not seeing because that voice is the loudest one?
I think it's very easy to focus on the negative rather than the positive feedback.
hmm hmm
But I don't think it's always a bad thing, because
Right.
if you learn from your mistakes, that will only make you better. So
Absolutely.
how do you strike that balance
Yeah.
in thinking too much on the negative and balancing it with some of those positive thoughts?
The way that I like to phrase it is you need to care, but not be attached. So you need to care about what other people think. It would be wrong to say, okay, don't care about what other people think. You are good enough as you are, because then you're not going to grow, as you
Mhm,
said.
mhm.
The key is to care about what people say, but not take it personally. So you say, okay, that's one piece of feedback from X person or from my boss, or from my coworker. These are all just data points. So when I work with professionals, especially in tech, to work on their confidence, something that we focus on is distilling all of these comparisons we make to data. So say, okay, one person said that wasn't that good. Another person said that wasn't that good too. Okay, maybe there is something that I have to improve.
Mm.
Or maybe one person said it was good. Okay, there is something good that I did. So taking the feedback that we get, distilling it to data, that's how we prevent it from becoming something personal that we then treat as something toxic to us.
Yeah. So tell me about so let's talk about this TEDx journey.
Mhm.
And for those who don't know what TEDx is, do you want to maybe give some
Yeah.
context? What is TEDx? And talk about your topic,
Mhm.
what you were able to talk about and your journey, and then maybe uh, how other people can try to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was starting my business in teaching public speaking, communication, data storytelling, I said to myself, I want to fulfill that old childhood dream that I had to give a TEDx talk one day.
Hmm.
And I felt I had reached enough confidence in myself because of all the reframes that we've been talking about so far, that I could go out there and apply and maybe, hopefully, be accepted. So what TEDx is, it's a kind of offshoot of TED. So TED is the main brand. Those are talks given by experts in the field. TED, I believe, invites those people specifically. But TEDx is kind of like an offshoot. Every city, even local subdivisions of that city, so counties and so on and so forth, have a little TEDx branch if there's an organizer in that area that puts it together. And those organizers develop an event where they either invite speakers or put out an application where people can apply. And then they choose people based on a theme they're running that year. So the theme that I applied to in DC, the theme was rethinking innovation. They were looking for talks by experts who found creative intersections between different industries. So some other talks that were part of that event were the intersection between artificial intelligence and surgery. Another one was the intersection of music and loneliness, I think was the topic. Another one was data and the ocean, all these kinds of intersections. And the topic I put forward was the intersection between music and data. This is something that I've been mulling over for a very long time in my career. My background was originally in music composition. I studied it in university, all of that, but the majority of my career was in data. So I said to myself, let me find a creative intersection between those two things. And what I put forward as my big TEDx idea for the talk was we can communicate data or topics in general more effectively by combining both the heart and the mind, by combining both logic and emotion together. So the musical component is the emotional component, it's the component that makes you feel, and the data component is the logical component, the rational component with the supporting evidence and argument. By combining both those worlds together, you can create a really compelling presentation. So that was the idea that I put forward, and I was very lucky to be accepted for that TEDx event.
So, this thing you've dreamed about this or since you were a kid, right? Not everybody has the similar types of aspirations. So what if you're somebody who's, introverted, shy,
Mhm.
has not even thought about this being a possibility?
Mhm.
How do you know you're ready for this? And secondly, the second aspect that I thought about as you're talking about this is being a expert in your domain. I
Mm.
think that's also a hurdle that a lot of people
Yeah.
uh, are find hard to overcome because they're like, I'm not an expert.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm good enough to give this talk. So how do you know you're qualified to become
Yeah.
a TEDx speaker?
Yeah. I'll start off with this. I I find some qualms about the word expert. I
Mhm.
prefer the word specialist. And the reason I make that distinction is because expert is not something you can really decide for yourself. It's a title that other people give to you. But specialist is something that you have in your control. You can specialize in something as much as you want. And the reason I draw that distinction is similar to our conversation about confidence before. I believe that in order for you to be confident, you need to own that completely yourself. You need to own your own value, own your own voice, own your own confidence. You cannot let other people tell you whether you should feel confident or not. So when I work with clients, something that often comes up is they don't feel good enough, just like you said. They don't feel an expert in their domain because not enough people are telling them they are, or nobody is saying they are good enough. But I believe that confidence is something you have to decide for yourself. Confidence is a choice that you make, a choice that says, okay, today I'm going to listen to all the pieces of feedback in my environment. I'll accept them as data, but I know that I'm confident in what I can do, and I also know what I can't do. That's it. In that way, we don't rely on other people to feel confident in ourselves. As an analogy, you can imagine there's that we are like puppets on strings. And that's what confidence feels like often for us. We're relying on all these other people to give us permission to feel confident in our ideas. But really, what we need to do is just cut all those strings and say, wait a minute, I am confident at my current level. I know there's more to go, and that's okay, but I'm confident in myself. And that has to be good enough. When it comes to deciding if you're ready or not to be a TEDx speaker, I'd say just go for it. Just apply and let the application process decide for itself whether you are ready to be accepted. Don't self reject, because if you do, then you'll never know if it was possible to begin with.
And I think that's the case with any opportunity, whether it's a TEDx opportunity or a career opportunity. Um,
Mhm.
don't count yourself out. Just there's nothing like I don't know, what's the worst case scenario? You'll
Yeah,
get they'll say no, and then you're not really losing anything. There's more to gain than to lose in
right,
trying or exploring these opportunities.
right.
And even with the TEDx talks, right? If let's suppose
Mhm.
you decide on a topic, you submit it, it's not like you have to actually present the talk for you to get accepted. After you're accepted, they coach you,
Mhm.
right? Do they not? Do they not go through how and how much time do they spend with you in coaching and preparing you before the actual TEDx event or talk?
Exactly. And that's what I'm doing actually right now for a client is coaching him through the TEDx talk that he's preparing. And the process I went through was very similar. Once you're accepted, then you work with a few coaches as part of the process to refine your talk. You pitch your idea, you make sure it all flows well, your body language, voice, all of that is good to go. So you have help. You're not alone in the process.
Yeah. Um, I've tried. I've applied. I applied to actually it's the same TEDx location talks that you gave, and you were a lot of help in me putting it together and whatnot. Unfortunately, I didn't get accepted this time, but who knows? Next time, I may try and try again, right? And that doesn't
Mhm.
hurt. But I realized as I was doing it and I was putting it together, um, that yeah, maybe this is something I can do. And before that, I may not have thought so for a number of different reasons. Uh, but I think the hardest part for me, and I think for a lot of people, is figuring out the topic.
Yeah.
What do I talk about?
Yeah.
Is that a hard thing to do? And how do you
Yeah.
how do you I don't know. How do you just look at the theme of the TEDx talks and then try to make your talk fit to that theme, or do you figure out what it is you want to talk about and then try
Mm.
to find locations that align with your theme and topic?
Right. I think it can go both ways. And it's sort of like the process of creativity. There are two phases of creativity. One being divergent thinking, where you're brainstorming, trying to find as many things as possible that you could talk about. And then convergent thinking, where you take all those things that you thought of and then you whittle it down. And then there are multiple cycles of this. So once you've done convergent thinking, you find a few things, then you say, oh, I could have done all these other things. And you do more divergent thinking, so on and so forth. So I believe you can do both. One is you can really know what it is you want to say and then find the event that caters to that theme. On the other hand, you can do something more akin to the job application process where you don't just submit the same resume to everybody, but you customize it to the particular event. You say, okay, this event has this theme. How can I fit my ideas into that filter? So both ways can work. What I advise when it comes to developing a TEDx idea, this is something I shared in the blogs that I gave to you as well, is your TEDx idea needs to not necessarily be revolutionary and unique and novel, because that's really hard. There are so many TEDx talks out there, so many things have been done. There's really no brilliant new ideas out there. There's nothing new under the sun, is the quote.
Yeah.
What you should do is find a topic that only you can talk about. That makes it not necessarily generally unique, but unique to you. What is something only you can say based on your experience? What is something that you specialize in, that you can claim that you're a specialist in? And also, what is something that perhaps challenges something your audience believes? So, what a TEDx talk is, its purpose is not to necessarily teach people, but to give them something to think about, a big new idea to take away. What is the big idea that can perhaps change the way people think about a topic they already know? What is perhaps a new argument you can put forward to something that's already been done? So, it's not necessarily something completely new, but within your domain, what is something only you can say?
Okay, so you figure out what that your domain is, right? What it is you know. Um, but why should I or why should anyone
Yeah.
even think about doing a TEDx talk? What do you have to gain from it?
This is what I'll say. The career landscape has shifted dramatically, where it is no longer sufficient, I believe, to just do your job 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, and that's it. Layoffs are happening everywhere. It's in our field, in tech in general. Everybody, so many people that I know are being affected by the current career landscape. We need to take our career into our own hands. And we need to say, okay, this is what I am a thought leader about. Now, you don't need to be the foremost person in the space, but you need to say, this is my personal brand. Then you can go anywhere that you want and you can say, this is what I specialize in, and then put your application forward. If you do that, then you create opportunity instead of waiting for it to come to you. So if you give a TEDx talk, you instantly make yourself the person for that topic. Then people will come to you for that. That's what I believe is the preeminent benefit of doing a TEDx, is it makes you that person.
It basically adds to your portfolio, right? It's
Yeah.
your portfolio.
Exactly.
If you were, you don't necessarily have to be looking for a job either to do this, right?
Right.
It just
Right.
adds to your own personal brand.
hmm hmm
And I think nowadays it's important to have that to your
Yeah.
point, right? To have that branding. I think of, especially in the data field, a lot of people think that it may not be as important because you just
Mm.
sit down, put your head down, do the technical work, and if you're good at that, then that should speak for itself. But who else is going to speak up for you if it's not you,
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
showcase what it is you're capable of?
hmm
And I think that communication aspect is a very underrated skill set amongst data professionals that perhaps a lot of people may not be paying that much attention towards. And I think it's something that will advance your career.
Yeah. And to add to our conversation about confidence before, the fact that you did a TEDx talk is verification for you that you can be confident about what you're speaking about. In that way, confidence is kind of like a loop where you're constantly trying to push the boundaries of your comfort zone and see how much can I do. And as soon as you do something remarkable, then you say, oh, maybe I can do something else. So I view the talk as a stepping stone to even greater things after that.
It'll also improve your work and your current job,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're a data professional, the experience you get from giving a TEDx talks will give you more confidence and to bring back to your current job to
Mhm.
then start engaging and speaking with others, and help you be more productive in
Mhm.
in your current roles, right?
Yeah, and I'd say specifically for us as tech and data professionals, as you said before, the communication aspect is often overlooked, but one of the most fundamental parts of success in the role. When you give a TEDx talk and you go through the process of coaching and everything, you realize how important storytelling is,
Mm.
essentially. Because a TEDx talk, many of them, if not most of them, start with a story, and that story is the through line for the entire thing. If in data we just focus on the technical stuff and the numbers and statistics, we will not have as much impact as we can. But when you go through the process of giving a TEDx talk and understand psychologically everything that's going on with the construction of an effective presentation, an effective story, you understand how to influence. And that's one of the skills that is so needed in our field, is not just to say what's going on, but influence people, tell them why it matters and what do we need to do about it.
Yeah, storytelling is so important. Um, it, it- Especially in data. And
Yeah.
people don't sometimes don't think of it that way. They're like, okay, I have these numbers. Let me just throw out the numbers in the presentation and that's it. That's my story. But
Yeah.
no, I think you have to give it more thought. It's kind of like writing a script for a show or a movie, right?
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
to think about the context, the story, the problem, the climax, the solution, all of that is packaged into a story in your professional environment, but also
Mhm.
in a TEDx talk. To your point, they're all stories, and stories is what resonates with people, right?
Mhm.
It's not just the entertainment aspect. It's
Right.
about grabbing people's attention, and that's why it's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say to add on to all the benefits of storytelling that you said, another thing that going through the TEDx process or in general working on communication and public speaking teaches you is the centrality of the audience there. When we're working on numbers in our data, we just focus on the computers and the coding and all that. We don't really think about people, but we have to understand how important people are to getting anything done in our organization. I like to phrase it like this. We can't just make things, we have to also make things happen. We make things happen by influencing people and communicating well. So, as an example, when you give a presentation, you cannot just think about what you want to say. You also have to think about what does my audience need to hear? What are their goals? What are their priorities? Is what I said interesting enough to them? Does it hit at their pain point or their priority? If not, I need to adjust. It's not about me anymore, about what I know and my code and technical skill. It's about that interface between me and my audience that is most important.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the other aspect here that I think is important is now in the day and age of AI, right? AI
Mhm.
is here. It's prevalent and you see it everywhere, especially in written form.
Yeah.
Okay. You go on LinkedIn, I would say majority of the content there is influence in some form or capacity from through AI,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's your own original thoughts and content, you run it through, and it's your your editing, your proof, right? Before you
Mhm.
you publish it, right? And nothing wrong with that. It's a tool that we
Yeah.
use. But what ends up happening is I think it becomes hard to distinguish great writers from
Mm.
uh those who are not as great because now it's kind of an even playing field with AI.
Yeah.
Verbal communication, it's very human.
Mhm.
AI has
Mhm.
not well, not yet.
Yeah.
I do see videos where you can generate verbal verbal talk, but for the most part, I think you know the verbal communication is still a very human
Yeah.
skill set, and that's something that if you're able to showcase how effective you are doing that,
Mhm.
that will still separate you from others. That's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, and
Mhm.
all of my LinkedIn posts are have these short video reel snippets from my podcast
Mhm.
because I want it to be different. I don't want it to be just be written. I want to incorporate that verbal aspect because it's still me. It's still branded towards me. It's still very human.
Mhm. I'm going to advance that and say that I think one of the most important skills to develop for any career is that ability to speak, not just speak, but on the spot speak, because that can't be faked, at least not yet, by
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. If you're in a boardroom with an executive and they put you on the spot and ask you a question, are you going to go to ChatGPT and ask it, hey, what do I say to this question, and then read it off the screen? No, you have to
Yeah.
be right there, present, and then answer that person right there and then on the spot. And to be able to do that effectively, there are so many things that you need to discipline your mind about. When it comes to coaching the clients that I do, we go through many, many weeks. How do you think well on the spot? How do you construct an effective argument? How can you improvise effectively and not lose your cool? All these things take work, just as much work as we do coding and creating dashboards and all that, just as much work needs to be done in our mind, our most important tool of all of them. So I would advance what you said by saying you need to develop your ability to think and speak on the spot because that is the most human thing and that's what people will connect to.
And it's also okay not to know all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people think like, okay, I don't know the answer, so it'll look bad, but not everybody knows everything, and it's okay to
Mhm.
say, okay, I'll look into it or I'll get back to you if you don't know the answer. That's probably a better response than trying to make up an
Oh, yeah.
answer just for the sake of having an answer that you think will make you sound better.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what we talked about before when it comes to confidence. It's not just about the stuff on the dashboard, but it's also the negative space. You have to be confident about what you don't know to handle the unexpected. So you can be confident in any situation, even situations where you don't know the answer, because then you can just say, I don't know that. I will figure it out, or I will learn that next. There is no downside to that because now you're learning. You acknowledge that honestly, and people want to see you grow from there.
They respect that. They respect
Yeah.
that you are honest and you have the ability to now figure it out.
Hmm.
I mean, and that's part of the job of a data professional too, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out problems.
Yeah.
And, finding this actually, so, I teach a data analytics class,
Hmm.
10-week certification courses at colleges, remotely throughout the country. And a lot of people ask me about that and about, what skill sets are people looking for? What makes a good data analyst? Do you need to know Python? Do you need to know R? Or is it just
Hmm.
SQL or Tableau enough? Here's what I tell them. the, your stakeholders do not care what
Hmm.
tool you use, whether you're using Python or you're using Excel. As long as you're able to solve the problem for them, that's all that matters. And if you become a good problem solver, that is what will make you a good data analyst.
Hmm. Exactly. And I'll add to that and say a key skill to develop is being able to know what story we're in at any time. So, for example, if we're in a stakeholder meeting and they are upset, we need to understand what is the story going on in their head. They are upset because there's a problem. What can we do to solve that problem? That's how we close that story and close that loop. Or if we're in a situation where we're talking to an executive and they're a little hesitant to speak up and they're a little confused about what we're saying, what is the story going on there? Maybe they heard something completely different in the presentation before, and now they're confused about why we're talking about our current topic. We have to understand what stories we're participating in so that we can be present characters and then change the narrative and tell people, here's what we recommend based on our area of specialization.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is good, good, Chris. So someone's listening to this, they're like, all right, I'm ready. I wanna take a stab at this TEDx talk or apply for it. How do they do that? What's the next step?
I'd highly recommend that they think about the reason they want to give the talk. And it should not be for purely selfish reasons. The way that you get the talk out there and accepted is it has to be something that gives back to the community. That's why we're doing this to begin with. So really think about the reason you're doing it. Come up with an idea that seeks to challenge what your audience already believes, maybe add some compelling new argument behind what they already know. It's something that only you can give based on your area of specialization. Then seek an event where they have a theme. There's often a theme associated with all these events, like humanity or innovation or creativity or courage, all these kinds of different themes. Find which event aligns with your top idea and then apply. If you can, even try to develop a relationship with the TEDx people, though they are very busy and inundated with applications, so that's not always possible. But
Mm.
try as best you can, get your ideas out there. Don't stop at one. Just like don't stop at one job application. Apply to as many as you can. Make sure that, of course, you do it in a personalized way. And ultimately, then the process is up to the TEDx organizers.
And you can just search for these TEDx upcoming talks just by doing a quick Google search, right?
Yeah. What I used to do is every week I would go to the TED.com website, I believe it is,
Mm.
and they'll give you a map and show you all the events coming up in your area. And then you can say, okay, what can I travel to logistically, and look at the websites for each of those talks and see if they align with your idea.
But you don't have to limit yourself to just your
Of
own
course.
geographic area, right? You can,
Mhm.
if you have the ability to travel, you can
Yeah,
go anywhere you want
exactly.
to
Mhm.
give this talk. So I don't think there is a criteria that you have to be local
Mhm.
to present in that area, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's more important to try to find the themes regardless of where they are, and then try to see if those are opportunities that you can potentially try to explore.
Exactly. In the event that I spoke at, half the people were local and half the people were from other states in the
Mm.
US. I believe the same is true in many other TEDx events. I know there was one in Illinois. I was watching the talks there. They got very popular, and a lot of the speakers came from out of state. So it's definitely possible to go to an event that is not where you are locally.
Great. Um, Good. So I think this is great advice. And I think this is a topic that I think is important, not just for data professionals, for
Mhm.
anyone, really,
Mhm.
regardless of your area of expertise. You want to give a plug on what on your on the services that you offer
Sure.
and what you do and ways that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am a leadership coach, leadership communication coach, public speaking coach, data storytelling coach, and trainer. And the best way to follow me is on LinkedIn. I haven't been posting as much lately, but I'm going to get back into it because I'm going to be writing a book. So my big goal for
Oh yeah.
2026 is I'm going to put a book together. I've been wanting, this is my other childhood dream. I've been wanting to put a book together for forever, be a writer. So I want to put everything I know about influence, communication, public speaking, all of the storytelling stuff that I usually teach into a book and make that publicly accessible. I think these skills should be what people know, and I want to make it possible for anyone to learn them. So my big goal for 2026 will be building that in public, and I'll be starting a newsletter on Substack. So the best way to follow me, keep up with all those updates is probably LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And from there, I'll also have a Substack page. I also have a YouTube page where I have these short videos talking about a lot of the stuff we talked about today.
Awesome, great. Yeah, I'll put the links to all of that in the show notes so anyone can
Cool.
connect with you. But this has been great, Chris. Love the conversation and I appreciate you coming on again onto the Data Nerd podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me back.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating or review. It really helps more data nerds discover the show. You can find all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, and more at thedatanerdpodcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your inner data nerd.